say that history is written by the victors. But what happens when you're not allowed to fight? When the galaxy's most fearsome warriors are banned from war altogether? That's the question I found myself pondering as I sat in the back of Professor Ghilran's lecture hall on the Galactic Concordia space station. The room was packed with students from every corner of the galaxy, tall, crystalline Varelians who shimmered like prisms under the artificial lights, squat, armored Korlax whose skin looked like molten rock, and even a few floating Zinari, their translucent forms pulsing faintly as they hovered above their seats. And then there was me, Ethan Cole, the lone human in a sea of alien faces. I wasn't supposed to be here. Humans weren't exactly welcomed with open arms in the wider galaxy. Oh, sure, we were part of the Galactic Concord now had been for about 50 years, but let's just say our reputation preceded us. Most species kept their distance, treating us like some kind of dangerous animal best observed from behind reinforced glass, but I'd always been curious. Curious about the stars, about the other civilizations out there, about why humanity seemed to carry this invisible scarlet letter wherever we went. So when I got the chance to attend the prestigious Concordia Academy, I jumped at it. It hadn't been easy. There were interviews, tests, psychological evaluations, but somehow I made it. And now here I was, sitting in advanced interstellar history 401, trying not to draw too much attention to myself. Professor Ghilran, a towering insectoid with 6 spindly limbs and multifaceted eyes, clicked his mandibles together as he addressed the class. Today, he began, his voice a resonant hum that filled the room. We will discuss one of the most pivotal decisions in Galactic Concord history, the prohibition of humans from participating in interstellar warfare. A ripple of interest passed through the room. Even the Zinari stopped their gentle bobbing to focus on the professor. My stomach tightened. This was a topic I'd learned to avoid. Most aliens didn't talk about it openly, but you could feel the tension whenever the subject came up. The unspoken question lingered in the air. What had humanity done to earn such a distinction? Ghilran gestured to the hollow screen behind him, which flickered to life with images of ancient starships and battlefields. As you all know, the Galactic Concord was formed nearly 2 millennia ago to bring an end to the devastating wars that ravaged our galaxy. The Charter of Unity established strict protocols for conflict resolution, including the regulation of military engagement. Most member species are permitted to maintain defensive forces and, under certain circumstances, participate in sanctioned conflicts. However, he turned his many-eyed gaze toward me, and I felt my cheeks flush. Humans are the sole exception. They are categorically forbidden from engaging in any form of interstellar warfare. A low murmur spread through the class. I sank lower in my seat, wishing I could disappear. One of the Korlax students raised a rocky hand. "Professor," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, "is it true that humans were banned because they are unstable?" The word hung in the air like a challenge. I clenched my fists under the desk, but said nothing. I'd heard it all before, the stereotypes, the half-truths, the outright lies. Humans are violent. Humans are unpredictable. Humans can't be trusted. Ghilran tilted his head, his antennae twitching thoughtfully. "That is a common misconception," he said. "While it is true that humans possess certain traits that might be considered volatile, the decision to ban them from warfare was not based solely on their temperament. To understand the real reason, we must delve deeper into the events that led to the ban." He tapped a claw against the hollow screen, and the image shifted to a grainy recording of a battlefield. It was chaos. Starships weaving through clouds of debris, energy blasts lighting up the darkness, soldiers clashing in brutal hand-to-hand combat. My breath caught in my throat. I recognized the scene immediately. It was the Battle of Vega Prime. This, Ghilran said, was humanity's first and only sanctioned involvement in a galactic conflict. At the time, humans were a relatively new member of the Concord, still proving their worth as allies when the Vraxian swarm launched an unprovoked attack on Vega Prime. The Concord Council voted to intervene. Human forces were deployed alongside troops from 27 other species. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. What happened next would change the course of history. The recording zoomed in on a group of human soldiers advancing across the battlefield. They moved with precision, their armor gleaming under the harsh light of Vega's twin suns. But it wasn't their discipline or their technology that drew gasps from the class. It was their ferocity. These weren't soldiers, they were predators. They fought like their lives depended on it, like there was no option but victory. The Vraxians, Ghilran continued, were a hive mind species known for their overwhelming numbers and relentless tactics. They had never encountered an enemy they couldn't outlast until they met the humans. The footage cut to a squad of Vraxians retreating, their once cohesive ranks shattered. Behind them, the human soldiers pressed forward, undeterred by injuries or losses. One soldier, a woman with a plasma rifle slung over her shoulder, paused to help a wounded comrade, then charged back into the fray without hesitation. Humanity's contribution to the battle was decisive, Ghilran said. Within 3 days, the Vraxian swarm was defeated, their forces scattered. It was a victory unlike any the Concord had ever seen. I felt a swell of pride despite myself. For all our flaws, humans were damn good at surviving, at fighting, at winning. But Ghilran wasn't finished. He tapped the screen again, and the image shifted to a somber council chamber. The mood in the room was tense, the alien delegates speaking in hushed tones. After the battle, Ghilran said, the Concord Council convened to discuss the implications of humanity's performance. While the victory at Vega Prime was celebrated, it also raised alarming questions. You see, humans did not merely defeat the Vraxians, they annihilated them. Entire battalions were wiped out, their hives destroyed. The Vraxian swarm, once a dominant force in the galaxy, was reduced to a shadow of its former self. The murmurs in the classroom grew louder. I could feel the weight of their stares, the unspoken judgment. It was not just the scale of the destruction that concerned the council, Ghilran said, his voice softer now. It was the intensity, the sheer determination with which humans pursued victory. To them, war was not a calculated exercise or a last resort. It was total, absolute. The Council realized that if humanity were allowed to participate in future conflicts, the consequences could be catastrophic. He turned to face the class, his multifaceted eyes glinting. And so the decision was made. Humanity would be barred from interstellar warfare, not as a punishment, but as a precaution. The Council believed it was the only way to ensure balance and stability in the galaxy. The room fell silent. I stared at the desk in front of me, my mind racing. Was that really how the galaxy saw us? As a threat so great that we had to be shackled? Contained? One of the Varelian students raised a shimmering hand. But Professor, she said, her voice like wind chimes, if humans are so dangerous, why allow them into the Concord at all? Ghilran clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. An excellent question. The answer lies in humanity's dual nature. While their capacity for destruction is unparalleled, so too is their capacity for creation, for innovation, for resilience. The same traits that make them formidable in war also make them invaluable in peace. The Council believed that humanity's potential contributions to science, Diplomacy and culture outweighed the risks. He glanced at me, and for a moment I thought I saw something like respect in his gaze. Indeed, some of the greatest advancements in recent galactic history have come from human ingenuity, their ability to adapt, to think outside the confines of tradition, has propelled the Concorde forward in ways we could never have imagined. The class murmured in agreement, though I could still sense a lingering unease. I took a deep breath, summoning the courage to speak. "So what you're saying," I said, my voice steady, despite the knot in my stomach, "is that we're both the best and worst thing to happen to the galaxy?" A few students chuckled nervously, but Ghilran nodded. "In a manner of speaking, yes, humanity embodies extremes of destruction and creation, of chaos and order. It is a paradox that the galaxy is still learning to navigate." I leaned back in my seat, my mind buzzing with questions. Was it fair? No, but maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe being human meant living with that contradiction, embracing the parts of ourselves that scared us as much as the parts that inspired us. As the lecture ended and the students filed out, I stayed behind, lost in thought. Ghilran approached me, his antennae twitching. "Ethan," he said, his voice quieter now, "I hope you understand that the ban is not a condemnation of your species. It is a recognition of your power and a reminder of the responsibility that comes with it." I nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said, I think I'm starting to get it." And as I walked out of the lecture hall, I couldn't help but wonder if the galaxy was afraid of what we could do in war. What might they think of what we could achieve? The corridors of Concordia Academy were as bustling as ever, filled with the hum of alien languages and the rhythmic clatter of various appendages against the polished floors. I walked through the crowd in a daze, Ghilran's words echoing in my mind. Recognition of our power, responsibility, paradox. It was a lot to unpack. I made my way to the observation deck, a quiet spot where I often went to think. The massive windows offered an unobstructed view of the stars, their cold light piercing the endless black. From here you could see the sprawling arms of the galaxy stretching out like veins of silver. It was beautiful and humbling. As I stood there staring into the void, I heard a voice behind me. "You don't look so dangerous." I turned to see one of my classmates, a Varelian named Kyle. His crystalline body refracted the starlight, casting faint rainbows on the walls. He tilted his head, his angular features unreadable. "Yeah, well," I said, managing a weak smile, "and looks can be deceiving." Kyle stepped closer, his movements fluid and deliberate. "I've been curious about your kind," he said. "The stories we hear, they paint humans as monsters, but you don't seem monstrous to me." I shrugged, unsure how to respond. "We're not monsters," I said finally. "We're just complicated." Kyle studied me for a moment, his faceted eyes glinting. "Complicated," he repeated. "That's an interesting word. Tell me, Ethan, do you agree with the Council's decision? Do you think humans should be banned from war?" I hesitated. It wasn't a question I'd ever really thought about. Growing up, the ban had always been this shadowy thing in the background, something no one talked about, but everyone knew. Now, faced with it directly, I wasn't sure how I felt. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me thinks it's unfair. We're not the only species capable of violence, but another part of me, I guess I understand why they did it. War brings out the worst in us. Maybe the galaxy's better off without that." Kyle nodded slowly as if weighing my words. "Perhaps," he said, "but it seems to me that the galaxy has also lost something by keeping you on the sidelines. Your people fought to protect Vega Prime when others would have faltered. That kind of resolve is rare." I frowned, unsure Whether to take that as a compliment or a warning. What are you getting at? Kyle leaned against the railing, his crystalline form catching the light. I'm saying that maybe the council was too quick to judge. Yes, humans are dangerous. But danger isn't inherently bad. Sometimes it's necessary. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, the station's intercom crackled to life. Attention all students and staff. A calm, synthetic voice announced, "This is a priority alert. An unidentified vessel has entered restricted space near the station. All personnel are advised to remain indoors until further notice." The announcement sent a ripple of unease through the station. I glanced at Kyle, who straightened immediately, his body tense. "Unidentified vessel?" I said. "What does that mean?" "It means trouble," Kyle replied. "Come on, we should get to the secure zones." But even as he said it, I felt a strange pull, a nagging sense that something wasn't right. "You go ahead," I said. "I'll catch up." Kyle gave me a sharp look. "Ethan, this isn't the time to play hero." "I'm not playing anything," I said. I need to check something." He hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Be careful," he said, before turning and disappearing down the corridor. I headed in the opposite direction, toward the command center. I didn't know what I was looking for, answers maybe, or just a better view of what was happening. Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was important. When I reached the command center, the doors were guarded by two towering Korlak security officers. They crossed their massive arms as I approached. "Authorized personnel only," one of them growled. "I'm a student," I said quickly. "I just want to know what's going on." The Korlaks exchanged a glance, then one of them tapped a communicator embedded in his armor. "We've got a human here," he said. "Says he wants to help." There was a pause, then a voice crackled through the comm. "Let him in." The guards stepped aside and the doors slid open. I stepped into the command center, my heart pounding. The room was a hive of activity, with officers of various species working at consoles and monitoring holographic displays. At the center of it all was Captain Trellis, a stern-looking Zenari whose translucent form pulsed with a faint blue light. She turned to me as I entered, her expression unreadable. "You must be the human," she said. "Ethan Cole, correct?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, standing a little straighter. "What's going on?" Trellis gestured to a holographic display showing the unidentified vessel. It was sleek and angular, its hull bristling with weapons. "That ship appeared on our sensors 10 minutes ago," she said. "It's not broadcasting any identification codes, and it's ignoring our hails. We believe it may be hostile." I stared at the image, a knot forming in my stomach. "Have you tried scanning it?" "Of course," Trellis said. "But their systems are heavily encrypted. We can't get a clear read." I hesitated, then took a step closer. "Let me try." Trellis raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly do you think you can do that we can't?" "I grew up around tech," I said. "Humans have a knack for improvisation. Just give me a shot." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Fine, but make it quick." I moved to one of the consoles and began typing furiously, bypassing the standard protocols and diving straight into the raw data. The encryption was sophisticated, but there were patterns, subtle rhythms in the code that hinted at weaknesses. I focused on those, exploiting every vulnerability I could find. After a few tense minutes, the screen lit up with new information. "Got it," I said. "The ship's running on a modified Vraxian system. Looks like they've retrofitted some old tech." Trellis's glow darkened slightly, a sign of concern. "Vraxians, but they were wiped out decades ago." "Not entirely," I said. "There were rumors that some of them survived. scattered across the galaxy. If this ship belongs to them... Before I could finish, the station shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. "They're firing on us," someone shouted. Trellis snapped into action. "Raise the shields! Prepare for countermeasures!" The room erupted into chaos as officers scrambled to respond. I stayed at the console, my mind racing. The Vraxians weren't just attacking, they were testing us, probing for weaknesses. And if they found one... "We need to disable their weapons," I said. "If we can overload their systems..." "Absolutely not," Trellis interrupted. "This is a defensive operation. We don't escalate unless..." Another explosion rocked the station, cutting her off. I grabbed the edge of the console to steady myself. "With all due respect, Captain," I said, "if we don't act now, there won't be a station left to defend." She hesitated, her glow flickering uncertainly. Then she nodded. "Do it." I dove back into the system, my fingers flying over the controls. The Vraxian ship's encryption was tough, but I'd already cracked part of it. I targeted their weapons array, sending a surge of feedback through their systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the holographic display showed their ship's weapons powering down. "They're disabled," I said, exhaling in relief. Trellis turned to her officers. "Deploy containment teams. I want that ship secured." As the room buzzed with activity, she looked back at me. "You took a risk, Ethan, but it paid off. Well done." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. For once, being human hadn't been a liability. It had been an asset. Maybe Kyle was right. Maybe the galaxy hadn't seen the full extent of what humanity could offer, not just in war, but in moments like this, in the space between destruction and creation, where survival meant thinking fast and acting faster. As I left the command center, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the beginning of something new? A chance for humanity to redefine itself in the eyes of the galaxy? Only time would tell, but for now, I was content to simply keep moving forward one step at a time. The station was quieter now, though the tension still lingered in the air like a static charge. Emergency lights pulsed faintly along the corridors as repair crews worked to assess the damage from the Vraxian attack. I walked aimlessly, my thoughts spinning in 1,000 directions. What had just happened back there? What did it mean for me? For humanity? For everything? I found myself back at the observation deck without even realizing it. And the stars outside seemed, colder now, more distant. For all their beauty, they felt indifferent, silent witnesses to the chaos and violence that so often defined life in the galaxy. "You really don't know how to stay out of trouble, do you?" I turned to see Kyle standing behind me, his crystalline body shimmering faintly in the dim light. His tone was teasing, but there was an edge to it, a mixture of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite place. "Guess not," I said with a shrug. "What can I say? It's a human thing." Kyle stepped closer, his angular features catching the faint glow of the emergency lights. "I heard what you did in the command center," he said, "disabling the Vraxian ship like that. It was impressive." "Thanks," I said, though the word felt hollow. "It wasn't exactly part of the plan. I just reacted." "That's what makes it impressive," Kale said. "Most species would have hesitated, weighed the risks, sought consensus. But you didn't. You acted, and because of that, we're still here." I looked away, unsure how to respond. Was that really something to be proud of? Acting on instinct, taking risks without fully understanding the consequences. It had worked this time, sure, but what about next time? What if I made the wrong call? Kyle seemed to sense my unease. "You doubt yourself," he said. "It wasn't a question, wouldn't you?" I asked. "If everyone around you saw you as a threat, as something dangerous if every decision you made felt like it could prove them right? Kyle tilted his head, his faceted eyes glinting. Perhaps, but danger isn't inherently bad, Ethan. It's how you wield it that matters. I frowned, turning his words over in my mind. How you wield it. Was that what Ghilran had meant when he talked about responsibility, about the dual nature of humanity? Maybe the real challenge wasn't avoiding danger. It was learning to control it, to channel it into something constructive. And before I could respond, the intercom crackled to life again. "Attention all personnel," the synthetic voice announced. "The unidentified vessel has been secured. Containment teams are reporting no immediate threats. Normal operations will resume shortly." Kyle exhaled softly, the sound like wind through glass. "Looks like the crisis is over." "For now," I said, "but if the Vraxians are really back—" Kyle nodded, his expression darkening. "It could mean trouble for the entire Concord. They won't forget what happened at Vega Prime. If they've rebuilt their forces, they'll want revenge." The thought sent a chill down my spine. The Vraxians weren't just another alien species, they were a hive mind, relentless and single-minded in their pursuit of dominance. If they were planning a comeback, the galaxy might be facing a war unlike anything it had seen in centuries. And humanity, we'd be stuck on the sidelines, forbidden from fighting even if our survival depended on it, unless a dangerous idea began to take shape in my mind. I pushed it aside for now, but I knew it wouldn't stay buried for long. There were too many questions, too many unknowns. Why had the Vraxians attacked the station? What were they after? And most importantly, what role would humanity play in the battles to come? The next day, I found myself back in Professor Ghilran's lecture hall. The room was quieter than usual, the students subdued after the previous day's events. Even the normally restless Zinari floated silently above their seats, their translucent forms dimmed. Ghilran entered the room, his insectoid limbs clicking softly against the floor. He paused at the front of the class, his multifaceted eyes scanning the room. "I trust you are all aware of yesterday's incident," he said, his voice resonating with calm authority. An unidentified vessel, later confirmed to be of Vraxian origin, breached restricted space near this station. Thanks to the swift actions of our security teams and one particularly resourceful student, the situation was resolved without loss of life. All eyes turned to me. I felt my face flush, but I forced myself to meet their gazes. Some looked impressed, others wary. A few, like the Korlak who had questioned me during the last lecture, seemed openly distrustful. Ghilran continued, his antennae twitching thoughtfully. "This incident raises important questions about the state of our galaxy. The Vraxians were believed to be extinct, their hive mind shattered after the Battle of Vega Prime. Yet, it seems they have survived, and perhaps even adapted. What does this mean for the Concord? For our future?" He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then he turned his gaze directly to me. "Ethan, as the only human in this class and the individual most directly involved in yesterday's events, I believe your perspective would be valuable. Would you care to share your thoughts?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of their stares, but then I remembered what Kyle had said. Danger isn't inherently bad. It's how you wield it that matters. I stood, my voice steady, despite the knot in my stomach. I think the Vraxians coming back changes everything," I said, "and they're not just a threat to one planet or one species, they're a threat to the entire Concord. And if we're going to face them, we need to be ready, all of us, including humans." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Ghilran tilted his head, his antennae twitching. "Are you suggesting that the ban on human participation in warfare should be reconsidered. I'm saying it might be time to rethink how the galaxy sees us, I said. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we're unpredictable. But maybe that's exactly what's needed right now. The Vraxians aren't going to play by the rules. If we want to stop them, we can't afford to hold back. The murmurs grew louder. Some voices supportive, others skeptical. One of the Varelians raised a shimmering hand. But how can we trust humans not to go too far? The destruction at Vega Prime was a mistake, I interrupted. A terrible, costly mistake. But we've learned from it. At least I hope we have. Give us a chance to prove it. Ghilran clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. A compelling argument, he said, but it is not one that will be easily accepted. The scars of the past run deep, and fear is a powerful force. I know, I said, but fear can't be the only thing guiding us, not if we want to survive. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Ghilran studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, Ethan. Let us see where this path leads. In the days that followed, the station buzzed with activity. The Vraxian ship was thoroughly examined, its crew taken into custody for questioning. Rumors swirled about what the Concord Council would do next. Some said they would mobilize a fleet, while others whispered about secret negotiations no one seemed to know for sure. As for me, I found myself at the center of a growing debate. My actions during the attack had sparked a conversation about humanity's role in the galaxy, a conversation that was long overdue. Some supported the idea of lifting the ban, arguing that humanity's unique qualities could be an asset in the fight against the Vraxians. Others remained deeply skeptical, warning that unleashing humanity's full potential could lead to disaster. Through it all, I kept thinking about what Kyle had said. Danger isn't inherently bad. It's how you wield it that matters. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time for humanity to stop running from its nature and start embracing it, not as monsters, but as something more, something better. The stars outside the observation deck seemed a little brighter now, a little closer. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged, not just at Concordia Academy, but in the galaxy itself. And as I stared into the endless void, I couldn't help but wonder, what comes next? Whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure: we'd be ready.